The Niners quietly just got really good news. They also very loudly got other really good news. We're going to talk about all of that in this episode. Hit subscribe if you're looking for daily 49ers content as always. But one thing that the 49ers have really been struggling with this season is the run game. They've really struggled in the run. And I want to get down to one thing that I think in this quiet good news is actually going to impact the run game in a positive way really, really well. And it's probably not what you think it is, so stick around to the end for that part. But I do want to ask you, before we get into this and dive into it, let me know what you think the best solution for the run game is. Is it as simple as George Kittle's coming back? Is it really that simple? Is it as simple as Dominic Purdy came back to practice today? We'll talk about that too. What needs to happen for this run game? Is it Connor Colby? He's a rookie. We're going to need Ben Bartch back. I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments. As always, appreciate you guys. We're definitely not getting a center. The best available center at the time was Drew Dahlman, and the 49ers stuck with Jake Brendel. So, I mean, that's just the way that it is. But you can tell me if you feel like, nah, man, the center's the problem. If we could get the center sorted, then we'd be all right in the run game. He's statistically rated pretty low in the run game compared to other centers in the league. So you could go that route. I look forward to seeing what you have to say in the comments as always. But let's get to some updates. Oh, yeah, there's the comment thing. But let's get to some updates first, okay? I want to jump in on a few updates real fast. One, because it sets up the whole conversation, but also because I want to make sure that if you're coming to my channel to be informed, feel free to let me know in the comments, by the way, if you're here to be informed. I want to make sure that you have the information, the best information available. Let's start with the fact that Brock Purdy and Mac Jones were both practicing today. We did learn later that Mac Jones was a full participant, Brock Purdy was a limited participant, and that Mac Jones has pretty much He's the front runner to start on Sunday. It looks like he's going to start on Sunday. That being said, Brock Purdy, from the footage that's come out there, again, looks really good. His footwork looks great. He looks to be moving really well, and I think they're just probably taking this one a little more cautiously, and you can't really blame them for being cautious about it. It makes sense. Dominic Purdy, as I mentioned earlier, also returned to practice today, was a full participant as far as I can tell. But, once we see the official practice report, we'll know for sure. But it looked like he was a full participant. So that one day of limited practice, just taking it easy on that knee, I'm guessing. Hopefully that helps him to get back to where he belongs. I don't know if that's enough. I mean, every player plays through injury. At some point in a season, but most certainly you would like to think that Dominic Purdy will get back to that form we know he's capable of. Kyle Shanahan talked about the fact that he will get back to that form that we know he's capable of. So we'll see that. It'll come over time. I'm not too worried about him. Matt Barrows did a little bit of research of his own, and 2 orthopedic surgeons, per Coach Yak, told Matt Barrows that if the 49ers made it to the Super Bowl, Fred Warner would most likely be available for it. John Lynch was asked about it as well on KNBR, and he talked about that, basically saying that, Fred Warner they haven't talked to the doctors yet about the exact timeline for Fred Warner. But then after practice today, we heard from Rob Saleh, and he said that, Fred Warner is going to be gunning to try and be available for the playoffs. So we'll wait and see. The bottom line is this. There's a shot. It might be an outside chance, but there is a chance that Fred Warner could be back in form around the time of playoffs, deep playoffs, whatever. That by itself is really good news, even if the Niners don't make the Super Bowl and have Fred Warner show up the week of the Super Bowl to play. Even if that didn't happen, it's really good news that he could be being done with his recovery process around the end of the season, which means he could be a full participant, ideally, in all of the offseason activities. That would be huge for Fred. I'm sure he'd be very disappointed to miss out and to be close and miss it. But also, there's a huge benefit there. I'm not getting anything. I'm not getting ahead of myself when it comes to Super Bowl stuff. I've told you that before. Marquez Valdez-Scantling was added to the 49ers injury report today with a calf injury, and it sounds like he's going to be out for a couple of weeks. So we just got more bad injury updates on the wide receiver front. You take that for what it is. I will say this is really good news for Jordan Watkins, who's finally healthy and ready to play. I knocked on wood in case anyone needed that. he's finally ready to play, and we desperately need Jordan Watkins to be productive because we still are without Ricky Pearsall, and now it looks like darn near impossible he's going to play on Sunday. And so now you're looking at MVS is out, who has been just a guy out there running routes and blocking. So we do need a body, for one. And for two, without having some of the other guys out there, obviously you don't have Brandon Aiyuk. There's other dudes that you would like to have out there that are not available. So you're looking at Juwan Jennings, who, he's going to be a questionable. Like, that's just the way that it's going to go. Best case scenario, he's going to be a questionable. You're in a tough spot with the wide receiver room still. And you have Demarcus Robinson. You're going to need to lean on him. You're going to need him to step up. That could be good. But Jordan Watkins is a guy who might be fielding punts instead of Sky Moore. And you know what? He could be a valuable asset to the team in Sunday night, his first ever true NFL game. That would be a big moment for the kid, and I'd love to see what he's made of. The 49ers math. This is from David Lombardi. This is great work from David Lombardi. He did this for the SF Standard. The 49ers math has completely changed thanks to Eddie Piñeiro. The path forward to win a lot of games is there if they can push this offense to a top 5 level, which Brock Purdy has previously done. Here's the stats that David Lombardi is talking about. Now, they might be kind of small on the screen. I apologize there. I'm still trying to figure out exactly the right spacing for adding stuff on the screen here, using the green screen and technology and all that stuff. But what you're going to see here on the special teams on the bottom right-hand corner, you're going to see that they've gone from red to blue. That's the short version of what you need to know. Their EPA each game has gone up and up and up, which is fantastic. You got to give Eddie Piñeiro full credit for that one because he's just been outstanding since he came in. And then defense has gone the opposite direction. Defense started pretty strong and has just been slowly but surely getting weaker and weaker and weaker. And then on offense, it's been a little more of a roller coaster. Some up, some down, some up, and then down most recently against the Buccaneers. And you understand the number of injuries they're going through, not being able to get a run game going, and you'd be thankful for any amount of EPA overall that this offense can produce, which is obviously an advanced analytic. So you're taking a lot of things into account with the EPA, which is why I like it so much. But when we get to the run game, which I think is the main problem with the EPA. Like, it's the main problem with why the 49ers are struggling to move the ball consistently well in big moments, in big situations, in the red zone, on 4th downs. That's the kind of stuff that EPA takes into account. I think the run game is the number one reason why we're struggling. Not because we need the run game all the time in the red zone, or because we need the run game all the time in a fourth or a third and long situation. We don't always need the run game, but you need the threat of the run game in order to keep the defense honest, and that's the thing that I'm struggling with. That's the thing that I feel like we need to get into in this episode, and that's where I get to quietly good news that's been happening that nobody's really talking about. There was a little bit of talk around Jake Tonjes. That's who's on the screen, if you can't tell. There was a little talk about Jake Tonjes when he came onto the scene and had a touchdown and all that stuff. But, let's just think about it for a second. And I've got other updates, so don't go anywhere. I got some great news on George Kittle. And I really am going to put all of this together into how I think this is going to help the run game, because Jake Tonjes is not the best blocker out there. So don't jump off the video quite yet. But Jake Tonjes is a 2022 undrafted free agent, gets picked up by the Bears. They like him. I think I have a quote on this, actually, but so I'll hold on to that. But they like him because of his versatility, being able to play fullback, being able to play as a tight end. And ends up making it to their practice squad. When it's all said and done, plays a few games, ends up on the practice squad, gets picked up by the 49ers, hasn't really done anything since then, but we were really excited about him when he got acquired, just because of the potential of what he might mean. And I actually think when you're looking at Kyle Juszczyk, I think Jake Tonjes is one of those players, Luke Farrell's another one of them, that you're like, maybe the Niners were okay if they had to let go of Kyle Juszczyk, if they couldn't reach an agreement, because of some of these other dudes that they're bringing in here and what their capabilities are. But Jake Tonjes on the season so far, in a season that he's had to do it without George Kittle. I want to keep that in mind. And we're going to talk about Luke Farrell as well, another guy who's had to do it without George Kittle, which I think is a very, very important detail, okay? He's got 25 receptions for 224 yards and 3 touchdowns out of a guy that, seriously, at times it was like, Who are we going to throw the ball to? And Jake Tonjes is making impact plays on the field. That's really cool. That's really special. It seems like a guy to me that Mac Jones feels very comfortable throwing to, which is a good thing. But his average, in case you didn't want to do the math, is 9 yards per reception with a 23-yard long, and that's coming out of a tight end that when we signed Luke Farrell, a lot of the frustration was we need another pass-catching tight end. We have always needed another pass-catching tight end. And I was on the other side of the camera telling you guys that I felt like, hey, the beauty of Luke Farrell is although he's brought in for the run game, and we know that because Kyle Shanahan basically just said it, although he was brought in for the run game, there was something else about Luke Farrell that I thought was really cool. There were some big moments that he had with the Jaguars, and I think that that's something that we should we should not look over. He does have a touchdown too, by the way, at least one. Luke Farrell does have the ability to catch the ball and run with it and be productive in that way. Maybe that's not his strong suit, but also in the same way we use Kyle Juszczyk, it makes him a guy that you can throw to that the defense is never going to scheme against. They're never expecting to see targets to Luke Farrell. So he's a guy that you can scheme open and it can get you some chunk yardage now and then because he's not going to be a guy like we've seen with Kyle Juszczyk. He's not going to be a guy the defense is scared of. He's not going to be a guy the defense is really focusing their defense around, as they shouldn't. So it just gives you another target. Here's what Ben Roberts from 49ers Web Zone had to say about Jake Tonjes. His athleticism and ability to play both fullback and tight end piqued Chicago's interest. Even if the 49ers manage, later in the article, even if the 49ers manage to get back to full strength this season, a scenario that's looking increasingly unlikely, Tonjes has demonstrated that his talent and reliability are simply too valuable to overlook. He embodies the versatility and determination that Kyle Shanahan covets, making him a perfect fit for the 49ers offensive scheme, both now and in the future. That is strong words, but I agree with them on Jake Tonjes. Now, how does that fit in with everything else that's going on? Obviously, George Kittle is back. You had to be living under a rock to not know that George Kittle is back. But if you have been living under a rock or you've just been busy, life gets busy, Kittle's back, you guys. Kittle is back. And it's pretty exciting. The 49ers, per SF Niners, says Brad Graham, have designated George Kittle to return, and he tells reporters he plans to play versus the Falcons. Now, it is yet to be determined, of course, if Kyle Shanahan will play him or if he will make him wait one more week. But we did learn more today from what happened to George Kittle, how bad that hamstring injury was. George Kittle says that he fully tore his hamstring in Seattle, which makes 5 weeks actually somewhat impressive. So he was extra careful to not return too early. He's fully healthy again now and plans to play Sunday against Atlanta. How does all this work together? That's the part that I want to get to. When we came into, when we got through the first week of the offseason, or the first week of free agency, there was this thinking out there, and I was one of the proponents of this thinking. I was one of the ones pushing this thinking, that Kyle Shanahan at times has used 2 tight end sets more frequently than most everybody else in the NFL. So we know in personnel packages like 22 that it's an obvious run scenario. It's an obvious run scheme, so to speak, right? But the beauty of 2 tight end sets, if you have a guy who can block and catch, if you have another guy, so George Kittle, guy who can block and catch, another guy in Jake Tonjes who can catch and is okay in the block, and Luke Farrell, who's supposed to be great in the block, but he hasn't been great so far this season. He's had some good moments, and definitely he's had some bad moments where he's given up sacks. So Luke Farrell, maybe a little bit of a question mark in the blocking, but also can catch. We've seen him do it, and he's done it for the 49ers, and he's done it before in the past as well. The flexibility that gives you on your offense with George Kittle back, that's kind of the most important part here. With him being back, is it makes it much, much more complicated for defenses to scheme against. What the 49ers can do, not what they will do, what they can do with these different packages, what they could possibly do if they wanted to change things up and be flexible in a time where now you desperately need your offense to become elite. You need them to become elite. And you have the opportunity now with guys like Kittle coming back and down the line, Brandon Aiyuk. There was another piece of news I never got to today, but Brandon Aiyuk, it's sounding better than what the early reports this week were suggesting around if week 10 was even possible. John Lynch sounded much more enthusiastic about Brandon Aiyuk's return timeline and the improvements he's making, even just this week from last week. That's a really good sign, too, as we're desperately in need of a healthy Brandon Aiyuk on the field. And I mean healthy meaning 2023 Brandon Aiyuk, not a 2022 Brandon Aiyuk. So we need him to get into rhythm so that as we're fighting for a spot in the playoffs, as we're getting into the playoffs, as I believe we will do, he will be then hitting stride and being fully healthy. That's what we need right now, guys. That's what we need. When you add into that you have, hopefully, by that point, figured out a more effective run game with the extra abilities of George Kittle, with the extra flexibilities of some of these guys who are really versatile, like Jake Tonjes and Luke Farrell, right? Like these guys who can do these other things. Theoretically, on paper, because we haven't seen it yet. But what I want to underscore here is two things. Number one, when guys go down, you need somebody to come up and take that role over. We saw Jake Tonjes take over the catching role to a smaller degree of what George Kittle was doing. We saw that open up opportunities for our offense. That's huge. That's big. We need that. Absolutely desperately need it. When you have George Kittle back now, how much is that going to improve Luke Farrell's game? Think about it for a second. How much benefit? I understand they're on two different sides of the field in a two tight end set, but still, how does that affect Luke Farrell's game to have George Kittle out there? Maybe less reps, maybe less tired, maybe more learning, maybe another guy you're alongside, and maybe someone that the defense has to scheme against and has to be ready for. It just is going to open things up, I believe. I don't know if that's going to happen right away, but I do believe the flexibility there that you have now, having tight ends that you can trust catching the ball, which we have not had outside of George Kittle for quite a while, does really open doors for what this offense can do. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about all that. As always, I appreciate you guys so much. I think I had an extra slide in here that was an accident. Other great notes. I think I got to all the extra great notes. And then Fred Warner. Fred Warner's, good spirits, things like that. People are saying nice things about him. We're 3 days away, of course, though, from the Atlanta Falcons taking on the San Francisco 49ers in Levi's Stadium. It's going to be an electric game. It's going to be Sunday Night Football. Everyone's going to be up for it regardless of how banged up the team is. If there was a moment that is going to help some of these young players try to rise to the occasion, it's under the floodlights, right? It's a primetime game that is going to put everybody on display, and every single one of those players is going to know it, and they're going to be ready for it. You add to that, you got Nick Bosa back in the building, kind of hyping up the boys. You have Fred Warner, who's at home recovering, but he's had great spirits, great attitude. So I feel really good mentally of where the leadership of this team is, even with guys like Fred Warner down. And Tatum Bethune's got a big job to take over, for sure. There's no doubt. Like, nothing's set in stone. But we know that Robert Saleh is working really hard on the safety issue, which is another problem that is mostly, I think, exacerbated by the lack of defensive line production right now. That's where I think you're seeing a lot of these issues happening with your safeties. But he said pretty much flat out that free safety role is coming down to Tig Brown, who's going to start on Sunday. He's getting his opportunity. Tig Brown or Marquise Siegel, Jason Pinnock fighting for that spot. Like, that's kind of how that's going to play out, because Malik Mustafa basically was confirmed to have his spot back in the lineup as your number one guy. So that's fantastic news. I'm excited to see what Robert Saleh schemes up. I'm excited to see how this offensive line handles all the blitzes. So much to talk about for the rest of the week, so make sure you come back for more tomorrow. Appreciate you guys, and hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your Thursday night.